Here we go. So, welcome everyone to the Business of Writing a Book, Lighting the Way and Leaving Your Mark, which is a LinkedIn Live series where I sit down with creatives, experts, and entrepreneurs alike to discover not only the inspiration behind their decision to write a book, but how doing so help them leave their mark in their respective fields and lead the way for others from a business and industry perspective. Today, I'm delighted to welcome John McMahon, the founder of MCM, who has worked to transform his company into a full-service digital marketing agency. During his 25 years at the helm of MCM, he has made empathy the foundation of his leadership, and he's constantly working towards creating an amazing team culture and helping others do the same. John McMahon is the author of The Power of Leading with Empathy, which explores why empathy is an often undervalued leadership trait, but it's so central in the new non-9-to-5 world, and how leaders on all levels can develop their empathy skills. The book will teach you all sorts of things, including how the role of a leader has changed and what you can do about it, why you need to focus on the I in teams, that's you, and encourage your team to do the same, how to define your work culture, values, and purpose, tips for open and empathetic communication in the non-9-to-5 office, and how to encourage empathy within your team. So welcome, John. It's lovely to have you here today. And we'd love to hear a little bit more about your book and, kind of where did the idea of the book come from, what inspired you, etc.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for having me. I'm an avid reader, always have been. I know you are as well. And I'm always reading 2 books at once, sometimes more. And actually now with Audible, sometimes I'm listening to a book at the same time. And it's normally a fiction book. And then I've always been into sort of, business books of all sorts. And often those sort of go into the sort of self-help as well. So somebody like Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits, I read that years ago, and that's been reiterated so many times over the years into different ways, and just been fascinated by it all. So I've always wanted to then write a book, and I wasn't sure what sort of book I'd write or how I'd do it. And then I watched, it was an episode about marketing, how businesses can market themselves and how you can put your personal brand out there more and things like that. And I must admit, I'm not great at personal brand. I shy away from cameras. As I said, if you'd said there were live viewers, I would have done my hair for this interview and everything else. So, you know me, I like more sort of one-to-one than the personal branding. And I thought, well, that's a great way to get the name out and also to get the company out and what we do without, being too direct. It was about a year ago, maybe slightly more. I was speaking to my son, who at the time was running a social media team for a big brand. But quite a young guy to be running a sort of a team like that and that sort of position. And I said I was going to write a book, and his sort of jaw fell open slightly. And then I said, I'm going to write it about PPC and SEO, because that's what we do and that will make us famous, won't it? And he just looked at me completely blankly. And I said, or I might write about something else. And he said, Dad, why don't you write about what you really know about, which is a bit of an insult because I think I do know about digital marketing a little bit still. And he said, your love has always been teams, it's culture, it's building a team, it's building the business, the people within it, etc. And it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me that maybe that's what is actually deep inside. It's something I could really write about. And when I got into the subject and planning it, when you suddenly get a passion for something and it's what you need to talk about. And let's face it, all that's been spoken about for the past 2 years since pandemic hit was, will we go back to 9-to-5? How do we treat people that are working from home? Do we trust people? How everything has changed in the business landscape. So it just seemed like the right time.
No, fantastic. I mean, I love books about human behavior. I find them fascinating. And your book's got so many tips and insights on how to, not only your theory, but literally how to implement it, which is amazing. And I mean, how did you sort of settle on the message of the book? Because I like some of those elements that you've got. I mean, there is so much to the book. I mean, from using the disc implementation, which we did in the past, but we're now reviewing thanks to your book, but also things like looking into yourself and realizing. I mean, I'll let you expand on that because it really is your topic. I mean, I love that you're talking about empathy. I mean, it's so much B2B has become H2H, human to human, hasn't it? And we've woken up to that fact that actually us as humans is so important. And your book is so timely. So tell
Yeah,
us a bit more about some of those insights that you put into that.
I think the empathy side of things, as you said in the introduction, I have always led our teams and we've always worked with our customers with empathy, except I never realized that's what it was before I started looking at this and looking a bit more sort of inwardly. I always thought, and I was always told I'm very soft as a leader. And we were one of the first agencies to have AstroTurf on the floor and a games room, and we had flexible holidays. We were the first, I think, to introduce duvet days. So basically, you had a day per year that if you woke up and you didn't feel ill, but you just didn't fancy going in for the day, just one of those days, you could actually phone up and be honest and say, I'm taking my duvet day, and that's it. And I was often talking, this was before that sort of stuff became trendy. Now everyone expects all the sort of benefits we do. And I must admit, people often said you're far too soft on your team, but we had incredibly loyal team members. We had a really good atmosphere within work. And I've always felt we spend more time in an office than we do at home. And it's such a big part of our lives that everyone should be enjoying it the whole time. But it is so difficult to get that balance, as we all know, between a whole team and even us that is enjoying things and also overworking and, whatever. So getting that balance has always been a fascination from me. And the more I've looked at it over the years, what could be a worse job or what could be a better job than actually trying to make people happy on a daily basis? And by happy, it's not necessarily just, giving them unlimited holiday or paying them a fortune or whatever else. It's people actually being happy because they feel at the end of the day, they have actually done something good. They've actually, they've learned something. They've been trusted. They've been part of a group. There's so many elements to that word happy. And I think having a job that tries to make everyone happy every day and gives them a great culture to work in, for me, that's all I need to do. Because then if you've got really inspired, happy people, then they inspire your clients. They're happy with your clients. They want to go out and find new brands to work with or whatever it might be. And it's a simple way to actually, start, the culture. So I think that side of it is really where it all came from, is me with the realization that actually it's the word empathy. It's not softness. And we talk about that in the book. Empathy doesn't mean letting everyone have as much free time as they like and, play table tennis all day. It means understanding, especially in the non-9 to 5 world, that people have, different days. You have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
We all have times of day when we work to our best. 9 to 5 is an incredible concept when we think about it. I mean, it came from factories originally and the way people were working, but way before factories and that sort of thing, when everyone just living in a small village and it was mainly farming, etc., people were governed really by time of day, etc. The pace of life was a lot slower. But now to say everyone, you come in at 9, you finish at 5, and this is how you have to structure your day and then take an hour for lunch. We're all different. And, some of us really love working first thing in the morning. And then by lunchtime, your energy's gone and you're pretty useless for the afternoon. And that's basically, I've just described myself. And so there are ways of obviously, reinvigorating yourself, going for a run or walking or something like that.
Yeah.
But then people who are a lot younger than me, as we know, teenagers sleep in quite often till lunchtime because that's how their body clock works.
Yeah.
So why do we expect someone to come out of a teenager, come into work and age 19, 20, be at their peak at 9 in the morning? So
it doesn't seem to make sense, does it? I mean, definitely it's great that whole empathy helps with giving people purpose and that support that they need. But the other thing I really liked about your book was the areas around self-awareness and self-regulation. I mean, can you expand a little bit on that, on those elements? Because I think that's especially for business owners or business leaders, we're all guilty of putting everybody else in front of ourselves. And actually, it's a bit like the sort of the oxygen mask in planes, isn't it? In an emergency, you're supposed to put yours on first.
Yes. And I love that analogy of, putting your oxygen mask on first, because it's a very obvious thing, but it's not obvious to you until you actually read that thing on the plane and you think, actually, this is why I need to do it, because my small child won't be able to do it if I'm passed out and I don't have any oxygen. And it's exactly along those lines. I mean, I have been guilty, many times in the past of overworking. And we all do it when we're in this sort of position, running a team. You get very, very excited about things and you get drawn into things, and it suddenly becomes, it's all consuming, and you suddenly realize you're doing nothing else but working. And whilst you might be really enjoying it, our bodies weren't built for that. So that's why burnout is very well known. And especially during the pandemic, when we were all properly in lockdown, is when it really, the penny really dropped for me that lots of people, there were people who were obviously furloughed. There were people who were in much worse positions, stuck in, one bedroom flats and things like that, who couldn't get out, who had nothing to do all day. And so they seem to have lots of free time they were trying to fill. The other extreme was people working in businesses who actually, because there wasn't anything else to do, or they were panicking about their business, were working such long hours because Zoom became a thing, email obviously was spilling into the evening, etc. Hours just disappeared. And the number of people that I spoke to on the constant Zooms that I was doing all day were all in the same position. I know I need to make more time for myself. I know I need to do stuff. And we were all having the same discussion that actually, unless you actually physically put those things into your diary, I mean, my diary each day, there's talk about it in the book as well. I block out time for things that I know I need to do work-wise, but also personally, as far as going for a run or going to visit my mum, or just literally taking time out to walk the dog and stuff. It sounds crazy, but we're very good at saying, right, here's our time in our diary, and this is all for work, and you fill your work diary in. And then you wonder why you aren't going and doing stuff for yourself, and you're not going out. I mean, it's a fantastic day outside. So after this, I am going for a run 100%, but it'd be much easier to turn email on and get sucked into that. But I know if I go out for a run, because that just happens to be a passion of mine, I'll come back so invigorated that then I'll do a brilliant hour's work, but I'll be much more effective in that hour than if I sat here for 2 hours doing something. So it really came from the amount of close to burnout that I think we all admitted to during pandemic. And then also, as we've had a conversation recently as well, the 9 to 5, when it goes, is a great thing because we can spend more time working on our personal lives and then our team as well. But unfortunately, we're so poor at self-discipline that we let emails spill into the evening and morning. We said, tomorrow I'll get better. Tomorrow I'll turn things off. And it is, none of us are perfect. We all just need those constant reminders that you actually need to put time in for yourself. Otherwise, we can't keep going. As human beings, we're not programmed that way. Diet, sleep, and exercise, 3 things we talk about again and again in the book. Very basic things. We're all very good at doing a diet to look good, or because we know it's for our health, etc. Sleep, again, we know we should have, and exercise we should have, but they're all body related, but actually they're brain functions. So those 3 things make our brains work. Without enough sleep, our brain won't work properly, unless we're very lucky, like a Maggie Thatcher or somebody like that. Without exercise, you don't get enough oxygen into your brain, so it slows down. And diet, again, what we put in there, we know, if we have a burger for lunch and chips, and you're on your inclusive holiday or whatever else, the afternoon is a write-off. That's why you lie by a pool for the afternoon. But if you do it here and you expect to work for the afternoon, it's not going to happen. So it's self-awareness. It's, really looking after yourself. And then what we try and do, certainly at MCM, is then teach the team how to do that themselves and give them the flexibility so they can work their own hours, but within obviously a range for clients, etc. But we've been teaching a lot of self-development, self-help, how exercise helps, how taking breaks helps, how actually power charging by going out for a quick walk and then going back into your work again. All those things that used to be frowned on working from home used to be frowned on, didn't it? If you were working from home, it was generally because the plumber was coming or something like that, and basically you weren't doing any work.
Well, you weren't fully focused, were you? I mean, even if you were trying to do work, you'd be trying to do a few things at the same time.
That's right. And we didn't really trust
that whole trust. Yeah,
exactly. So that's all changed now. And the opposite now is, because our teams are working from home a lot, most companies, will be doing some sort of hybrid working of some sort.
Yeah.
We actually need to teach our teams how not to overwork at home, which is something that was the opposite before. But we need to get people at their peak productivity, and that is by not overworking. So it's having the self-care that we can teach people, as well as being, how to be productive and disciplined in your time. So there's a lot more challenges for a leader going forward than there were before, and it's a very different type of leadership.
It's much more sort of diverse, isn't it? I mean, just the word empathy, how do you feel that's changed in the last 2 years even? Because it used to be felt as a sensitive and weak and whatever, but now empathy is very much a buzzword in so many industries, isn't it? How do you see that translation from what was seen as negative as seeing something which is vital? Um,
I think, if anything good came out of COVID, I think that's one of the things that did. I think we all went through the same experience. I mean, if you, I was going to say, cast your mind back to the World War II, but obviously leave us with error, we'd go on record for that. But if you look at people that came out of World War II, they had that common bond of having been through something utterly, horrendous and catastrophic.
Yeah.
And people sort of understood each other more, and there are different types of people that live through those experiences. And I like to think that we've all gone through COVID across the entire world. We've all had the same experience. And when you talk to people went through lockdown and everything else, and I think people had a lot more time to look at themselves and look at how they lived their lives, etc. They saw there was another way, but also people began to understand other people's lives in a way that we didn't before.
That's
like
so
I mentioned,
true. Yeah.
even things like, people working in, it's easy for me. I've got a nice house. We've got a nice big garden. We were really lucky to have moved here before pandemic hit. I can go out and I can go in the fields and I can do my runs and walks and things like that. And it's easy to think, well, it's great to work from home. People should do that all the time. But then we've got employees who've got their bed behind them when they're on Zoom, and maybe they don't move out of that room all day because there isn't much else to do. And I think that taught us that actually we're not all the same. It makes you really think about other people and what other people are going through. So I think that's why empathy's become much more, and obviously what's going on in Ukraine at the moment as well, that's a lot closer to home than other conflicts have been. So we're beginning to actually put ourselves in their position and say, wow, actually we're pretty lucky in what we do. So all this, constant, you need to think about what other people have in their backgrounds. And I think it all came about by being on meetings like this, where you were seeing into people's homes, you were seeing into their backgrounds and their lives. The doorbell would go and it'd be the postman there. And that you used to pretend you didn't have a doorbell and that you weren't in your house at all. You'd have, everything, there'd be no way.
The famous clip of the guy on, was it BBC, where these kids came in? God, that was the funniest thing.
But that's now part of life. And, during our team chats and things like that, if a child comes in now and sits on somebody's knee,
exactly right.
It's
lovely.
It is.
It's really lovely.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So actually your home life is real. You don't just live completely alone and pretending you don't have kids like you do when you're in the office. So
exactly right. Yeah.
We've had
We're
this
all human.
insight. Exactly. And that's what it is. We're all human. And I think we've realized maybe how to better interact as humans by seeing into other people's lives through this sort of thing. It's broken down a lot.
I agree. I mean, I remember earlier on in COVID where there was a new client that I was talking to, and she was in her bedroom and she had an unmade bed behind her, and then she turned the camera around to say, "Oh look," and her dog was on the bed, and I thought, well, this is so lovely. It's so genuine, and it's kind of welcoming. You can, just as you say, get to understand a little bit of the flavor of somebody's life, which is fantastic. But have you found that sort of writing a book has opened up sort of new business or new personal opportunities for you? Has it sort of helped broaden your personal sort of like business demographics from both sides, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's got us to talk to people who probably wouldn't have talked to us before. If I'm really honest, part of it is a marketing tool.
Of course,
So, if I had emailed certain brands or we'd sent them a letter or whatever else saying, John would really like to chat to you, whatever, it's an instant, isn't it? It's a block. It's that they're trying to sell to me. That's it. So you always use a softer tactic anyway. The people I've sent the book to we've had some CEOs of some large target demographics that we're aiming at who have actually come back to me on LinkedIn with a nice message. And, they're not all saying, yes, let's go out to dinner tomorrow, John, or whatever else, but they're interacting. And when you get people who actually come back and they have actually started reading the book and they talk about it, that's quite, it's not just a proud moment. It's all that hard work that we might talk about in a minute was worthwhile. And also what it does for this particular book is it says to us, look, the way we work with our customers and our team is on a very human level. We actually practice what we preach. It's not just slogans on the wall, etc. We've always been like that. Yeah. If you want to work with an agency where everything is very strict and very, methodical, etc., which some companies do want to do, we're not the right people for you. But if you want to deal with humans who are passionate about what you're doing, come to us. So it's definitely opened doors there. In fact, only yesterday I got an email from somebody's PA. They're a large client of ours. And I'd given, at the last meeting, I'd given this guy a copy of the book. And as I always do, I say, if you've got a wonky table or something like that, or if you have trouble sleeping, because I'm so bad at saying this is a brilliant book, you must read it. And I gave him a copy of the book, and it was only about a week ago. And she emailed me yesterday saying he's read the book, he thinks it's absolutely fantastic. Could you please organise to send us, and we'll pay for them, 9 copies of the book for
Amazing.
our board of directors, please.
Amazing.
That's the sort of thing we want to do, because that's great that it's got us in front of more people, etc. But for me, it means, and I've had this from several people have said, do you know what, I've read your book, and my God, I wish if our company worked that way, and I wish if our leaders worked that way. And now they're giving it to people, and I can see they'll be having a debate. No one's going to follow every single thing in this book because we're all different. But things like even, the whole empathy thing now around our teams and our culture is, you need the right people within a team to work with each other, especially if you're going to be work from anywhere or hybrid, etc. You need certain types of people to work together. Other types of people want to be in an office 9 to 5. Other types of people want to be told what to do all day, every day. We're all different. Yes. And I think what we've tried to do in the past is force all these different personalities together. You don't want a team full of exactly the same personality, because you'll all just be too nice to each other and you won't challenge each other at all. But that healthy conflict that people like, Patrick Lencioni, etc., writes about, the team that is actually all on the same page, you're going to work so much harder together. So
yes,
there's a lot of interest there from that side, is actually looking at how you go back to some of the basics that have been talked about in books for years, but need to be applied in a different way, like the DISC profiles that you mentioned.
Yes.
And setting out your culture as well, actually getting your team to talk about what is it that drives you? What is our culture? What is the ideal person that works for MCM? What do they do? What do they have? And how does that fit in the current world that is, for us, work from anywhere? And what is your passion and goal? So rather than me sitting here and saying, right, my passion is we're going to do this, and I'll be on my yacht sailing around, wherever it is whilst you guys work hard. That's not what we're about. That's not what business is about. Business is about the whole team saying, yeah, do you know what? It would be fantastic if we worked with X brand or whatever. And that's when people get inspired and happy and fulfilled in their roles, etc. So yes, long answer to a short question, which is yes, it's opened lots of doors. And it's been much nicer way. We've sent a goodie box, all sorts of things to people with the book, and like a stress relief kit or things like that. It just gives us options to play around a little bit with getting in front of people. And as I say, people aren't going to turn around and say, right, sign me up, that's great, I'm going to work with you tomorrow. But it gets us invites and people inviting us to coming along to round tables and things like that. It's something else to talk about.
But makes you thought leaders as well in this particular subject as well, doesn't
That's
it?
right.
Because you're living your belief. So you're kind of a living case study of what you're sort of writing in your book, which is amazing.
That's right. I mean, my sort of, my original concern about the book was it's not about digital marketing, which is what we do. We do your PPC, your paid social, your SEO.
Yeah.
And this mentions some of the things I went through building the business and whatever, but it's not as direct as a book telling you how to do it. And that was slightly the concern, but that doesn't seem to have been so. I'd say for anybody writing a book that, write what you're passionate about. Because I've become more passionate about all of this. The more I've written it, the more I've spoken to people who've gone, John, yeah, I don't do that and I should do that more. And yet it's become an absolute passion that we can work non-9 to 5. We can really set our hours and let our team set their hours. We can actually enjoy life as well as working hard. And the two can mix together. I think I've got a quote from Richard Branson in here that basically says, there's no difference between work and home life and work and hobbies. They should all be the same, because you should enjoy your work so much that it becomes part and you can get it into the two. It's a difficult balance, as you know, but
it's blurred a lot of lines, isn't it? It really has.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in a good way. I think that's it can work to everyone's advantage, really. As you say, build purpose and build sort of team core values, etc. But with regards to actually writing the book, what was the journey like to get it all down on paper? I mean, you're very articulate normally, so you must have found it fairly easy to put it all down on paper. What was it like?
Absolutely simple, no problem at all. When I said I'd commit to it, and I thought, well, that's a really easy way of actually getting in front of people. So yeah, I'll just write a book. And a few people said to me, it is quite a hard thing to write a book. And wow, that you know yourself, it's absolute discipline, which is brilliant because every day you have to do it. But like I was 5:30 each morning or whatever it was, sat down and you had your chunks written out, and some mornings you'd come and you'd write and you'd get completely into the flow. Other mornings, obviously, it was a lot harder, and that they'd be books that's part of the book that I went back and then edited. Somebody else did say to me the editing process of the book is harder than writing the book, and that's true. And the thing is, because by the time you've got to the end of the book and you've written it all, you're pretty sick of your own book by then. If that's it's because it's been so hard in places that it's right, that's it, done. But you're not even halfway there at that point, no. Because then you've got to go out to people and ask for their opinions. But what point do you ask their opinions before the editing's gone? And I did several times say, right, I had this vision as a writer, okay, that if I could eventually just be an author, someone like James Patterson, he basically he lives in his beach house. He gets up in the morning, he has his cup of coffee, and he types, for a couple of hours, and then he walks his dog on the beach, and then he gets back and he types a little bit more. What a life! Whereas several times I took a day out and I went down and I sat near the beach with a laptop to try and write. So nothing at all, no Wi-Fi or anything. Nothing, absolutely nothing was coming out of my head. And I've never experienced writer's block, because you say, I can talk forever, but writer's block was and the more you try and think about it, it's a bit like meditating. The more you try to meditate and really try and force it, it's not going to happen. You have to sort of let go. So I wouldn't want anyone to think it was an easy process. And this is only this is quite a small book, but when you actually see it like this in front of you, and you actually get, when the Kindle version came out, I thought, that's quite good. But when I got this, that is like, I don't care if nobody reads it. That is an achievement. But when it's laid out properly and stuff inside, it's it's a great feeling. So, but it's certainly I admire every single author that there has ever been now. In a different way.
I agree with you. I thought that writing would be quite hard, which it's not easy, as you say, but you can use your tone of voice and kind of write the way you would speak. But it's the editing and making sure that it flows properly, and that there's a beginning, middle, and end, and all that kind of stuff. And all the editing, and people come back with such marvelous ideas on how to improve or take stuff out or whatever. And you're like, what do you mean take that out? But it's but it makes for such an improvement. And it's just that part which I personally didn't enjoy as much. But it is. You've done a fantastic job. It's a fantastic book, and really for any industry, I think it's which is marvelous. It really is a business book for anybody or anybody working with people. Have you got any sort of tips from what you've learned in the journey you've gone through? Have you got any tips that for anyone thinking about writing their own book, again, whether it's their own sort of, whether it's fiction or fact or a business book or otherwise, are there any things that you'd have done differently, or any things that you'd like to suggest that would help anybody else thinking about it?
I think the first thing I said is to actually have a passion for what you're writing about. I don't think it would ever work, especially not this sort of book. It wouldn't work if you didn't have a passion for it and you wouldn't get to the end of it, or that you really, it's something you really wanted to get at. So if I'd written the book about PPC and SEO, my passion isn't PPC and SEO. That's a means to an end. That should just be something that is a process that gets done. My passion is actually the creative, the ideas for the campaigns, the actually looking who the audience is, working out who they are. So it's much broader. And obviously my day-to-day passion is the team, having people much better than me who can actually do all that stuff. And to be honest, now I'm very little in the day-to-day anymore. It's more managing the team and the growth of the business, etc. So writing about something you're passionate about 100% has to be at the core of it. And then the other thing is planning. I was struggling. I had the book planned out. First of all, I had the chapters, and I knew more or less what I was going to talk about. And actually, when it first went back for editing, they moved all the chapters around, and I tried to work with it, and it just threw me completely. For about a month, actually, I really struggled to try and get the book back together. Instead, I realized that no, it was my book, and I planned that because that's what I knew the journey to be. The start with I, which is in the book. The book basically, it explains, that 9 to 5, is no longer a thing. There's going to be all sorts of iterations of it, but the start with I as in focus on yourself as a leader, whatever level you're at, because the book's for any type of leader. It's not for CEOs. It's not for, it's for anybody running a team of 5 people to 5,000 people. It doesn't matter. So I think stick with your original idea, what you actually wanted to do, and what you had in your mind. Because when I went back to the old format, it was perfect. And then I spoke to a journalist, in fact, who gave me a brilliant tip as well when I was struggling a bit with, trying to actually get sections complete. And he said, okay, so you've done your chapters. Yeah. You've done your sections. Yeah. Have you done your paragraphs? I was like, no, my paragraphs. And he said, break it down as small as that you break down all your paragraph headings to what you want to do within the book. And literally, if you do that and spend some time doing it, it then just flows under each section. And especially if you're doing the 5:30 in the morning, shift, and you're getting in and you're starting, instead of staring at the screen, you write a paragraph and you write a paragraph. It's like I'm reading another, I said I'm reading books all the time. This I'm reading at the moment is Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? Which I would highly recommend. My team are going to be sick of hearing me say, each time they suggest something, I now say, will it make the boat go faster? And when I suggest something, they say the same to me, John, will it make the boat go faster? And it's brilliant because it makes you think, actually, what are we trying to do? We're trying to, grow and whatever else. And it was written by an Olympic athlete, Ben Hunt Davis. And I've completely forgotten why I was telling you that now, but it's a great book, so I'll recommend it.
Oh, just about the paragraphs and breaking it down and having a journey and
exactly.
Yeah,
Sorry, yes, no,
fine.
you're right. Within that, one of the things that he said, because he was training, it is based on them training for the Olympics, rowing. And one of the things he said in that is even for training for him and doing things, if he said, I'm going training for 2 hours, 1 hour on the exercise bike or something, he would put it off even at that level. But one of the rules is do 10 minutes, always do 10 minutes. And if you can persuade yourself to do 10 minutes of anything, and I now do it for, I don't know if I hate gym work, but going and spending, a little bit of time in the gym, I say, I'll just go for 10 minutes and that'll be it. And, once you've started and got into it, it's much easier and that's it. And it's the same, with the book. It's the same with the book, if you've got your paragraphs written out. So take it in small chunks, don't beat yourself up and just enjoy it. It's got to be an enjoyable process. But, it's.
Would you encourage other people to write a book?
I would.
Be something
100%. I think, they do say everybody's got a book in them, don't they?
Yep.
And I think everyone has. And, there's an awful lot of, imposter syndromes, another real buzz, phrase at the moment in the past couple of years. And this really helps me look at stuff. And I'm thinking about actually, you've done some good stuff over the years. You've made mistakes like everybody, but, and also you've beaten yourself up a lot about all this, am I getting fit enough, or do I leave myself enough time and personal time and space and everything else? And actually, I'm looking at it now and going, do you know what? I do all right, actually, because everyone else is just as bad. So it's a great thing. Even if no one ever read it, it's something that you get your thoughts down on paper and stuff.
It's quite cathartic. It
is, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly the word. So yes, I would. Yeah.
Okay, so you've basically helped to show yourself as the thought leader that you are. But what did you learn about yourself whilst writing the book, if anything? Is there any did you uncover any things about you, who you are, how you work, that kind of stuff? Anything that revealed itself?
Can I just say yes? Do I have to reveal anymore?
But no, you don't. So it is quite useful to get to know yourself.
Absolutely,
I think as well as your.
One of the things in it is, I talk a lot in the book. I mean, there are obviously the team building, the making sure we get the team together often enough. There's a lot about communication in the book as well, which I learned from other businesses as well, who, have maybe been worked from anywhere forever, have always been virtual, etc. And that was part of the journey of the book, was interviewing other businesses from all sorts of areas. How did they inspire people virtually? How did they get people? How did communications, etc. work? So that, and on the self-help side as well, there's lots of things in the book that I say, turn your email off after 6 o'clock in the evening. Don't check it at the weekend. Here's the reasons. Put your laptop in a cupboard, whatever. One of the great things is I now check myself on a lot of the things. So when I'm checking email in the evening and I shouldn't be, I hear the voice of the book. If not, I hear the voice of my wife or one of my sons or somebody who's around who goes, but you said in the book, you never do that. And it does, it makes you more definitely made me more self-aware that I need to practice what I preach, because all of the stuff in here it is good stuff, and it's not my ideas. It's from other people. It's interviews. It's stuff that I've
You've
learned
got
over
some
the years.
great case studies in
Books.
there. It's
Exactly.
wonderful because it's really, it kind of fixes those issues in kind of real life work environments, and real life case studies, which I kind of think it really kind of brings it to the fore. And another thing that I love in your book, which says your sat nav only works if you tell it where to go. That's one of my favorite things in the book because it's so true, isn't
It
it?
is, and that's all around goals. And I think goals are something that they became quite unfashionable, because people were saying, well, if you set goals and you don't achieve them, so somebody like Brian Tracy, Brian Tracy's Goals is a book that I would highly recommend, which he really goes into detail about how to set your goals, visualizations, and all that sort of thing. And I think even the word visualizations used to seem, oh, if you really visualized. I've done it for 25, 30 years. I've got a mood board. I've got photos on it of people that I respect, people that I aspire to. They've changed over the years, some of them, some haven't. Things I want to do, etc. And I do a list every day of what I've achieved, what I haven't achieved. And I've got those goals for the future. And what is brilliant, I think, about the goals is you'll never get to the end, because you don't want to get to the end. Basically, you want to keep achieving and keep going, and it doesn't matter what you do. There's always other things you can do in life and move towards. And I think what's great about the goals is not beating yourself up if you don't actually get the very, very top one, but watching that journey, so you're always going somewhere. And that's the sat nav thing, is if you set that path, it doesn't really matter if you take a massive detour at some point, because you're still going to get to where you set yourself eventually, and what you feel is right and what's right for you. So I think it's something we've been through a lot with our team. I've done it with friends. I've done it with all sorts of people, actually doing the goals, writing them down, saying, where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing in 5 years, 10 years? We do it as businesses. We set business plans and we know, but we don't always do it as people.
No, that's true.
What do I want to do? What do I want to be doing age 70? I don't know what the answer is. I think if you'd asked me that question 30 years ago, I would have said, I want to be retired and I want to be living somewhere abroad and whatever else. But as you get older, actually, you think, what is fun is a whole mixture of things. And I can't see myself doing nothing all day or playing golf or anything else. So you keep changing things, but you've still got more or less an end goal of, my end goal is basically, I always want to say I'm happy. I want to say at the end of the day, I've achieved stuff. Both business and personal. We do a thing with our leadership meetings in the morning once a week, where everyone has to give one great thing that's happened to them personally during the week and one business thing that's happened to them during the week. So it starts the meeting on a high. And the thing is, I think a lot of us are in danger of having lots of business things that you can say, this is great this week, but it really makes you focus on, am I doing enough personally? Am I doing things that I'm really proud of and happy?
You're so right. It's like when people say, what are your hobbies? And you're going, my business.
Exactly. And it does, it forces you, as I got back, as I know you're doing as well, into boating recently. And it's something that's just as challenging as business, because it's not easy. And there are certain skills that you have to learn, etc. And it gives you that adrenaline and a bit of fear and stuff. But wow, when you actually go out and you complete a journey and you've done all what you're supposed to be doing, etc., you get that inner sense of pride, etc. So it is
total focus as well. And that's why it's such a stress buster, because you can't actually think of anything else. You're completely in that zone, aren't you?
There's no chance of checking emails. That's for sure. Which again,
definitely not.
Yeah, but whereas if you're sitting on a train, you might check your emails and stuff. So yeah, you're quite right. You're completely in the zone.
Yeah. So tell us, where can we find your book? Where can people buy it or get it? How can they get in touch with you? Maybe show up hold up your book again, just so people can recognize the cover.
The Power of Leading with Empathy. It is available on Amazon, and it's available paperback or Kindle as well. But you might be able to put in the comments on this on LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn, or go to our website, which is mcm.click, which is nice and easy to remember these days. And send me an email. Tell me you want a book and I'll send you one, because I want to send it to as many people as possible. It's not about getting sales on Amazon. It's about getting this into people's hands, because it did become a passion that actually does also say, do you know what? This is something you can do. And I've seen so many people already coming back to me saying, do you know what? It's not it'd be cheesy to say it's changed their life, but it's actually made people really focus on some things that some of us think are fairly, you should take for granted. So yeah, email me or go to the website and email me via there. Or, if you want to help me towards that, wherever I'm going to retire age 70, buy an Amazon and I can have the 99p.
Well, thanks for making us stop and take stock of our lives and kind of refocusing. I think it's a very valuable message, and I love the book. So thanks for creating it, and yeah, thanks for having us having you on the show.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll be in touch and speak to you soon.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Christine. See you soon.
Bye. Take care.